Doge, D-O-G-E, the doggy coin. Yeah, I mean, it's been blowing up in the news. This is a pretty typical flagging pattern that I've been pointing out for a minute. It did go a little bit earlier and hotter than I was thinking, but we'll just take a look at Doge. It's not as crazy as people are saying, although it kind of is. I mean, it's a huge move, but we'll look at Doge and we'll look at Bitcoin, which Doge is blowing up, Bitcoin is pulling back. The market is kind of checking back and looking weird, so there's some interesting stuff going on. We'll take a look. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications. Let's go. The Dogecoin. All right. So let me get out on a wider chart. I'll be taking a couple looks at Doge here. I haven't done a dedicated Doge video in a minute, but this thing blew up a little bit faster than I was thinking. If we go out to the daily chart, you can see what Doge is doing. Just bull flagging up a trend line here. And I had the trend line down here-ish somewhere. So I was looking for Doge to like flag for another week or so before it goes up, but this thing did another bull flag move, and it did it a lot hotter than I expected. This is a second huge move up in a row. So just tighten this trend line up a little bit. I think it's ahead of the trend line. It's ahead of the moving averages and stuff too. But this is not a super surprising move on Doge. It's just mean. It's super angry. So if we take a look at this, at the flag that it's forming right now, it's pretty similar to the previous one. We got a spike, and then it kind of rolled up, and then we just flagged over. Super boring. So that's entirely possible again. Like it's just going up, and then it could just flag here around the like 135. It does these super boring sideways flags like over and over, which are pretty cool. I'm not saying that will happen. The general look on a flag is not flat and sideways. That's a really weird flag to get, especially multiple times. Usually flags kind of pull down and drop and pull down and drop, and then maybe pick up support. So that's like a more normal kind of bullish flag to look for. But Doge doesn't do that. Doge just goes sideways. So it's very possible that this thing just wobbles a bit and then gets super boring for another month or something like that. Anyway, that's the look at Doge. Yeah, it flagged and it's starting to roll over, so I don't expect it to like take off higher right now. I think it's definitely going to consolidate, and then we'll see if it holds support or gets over here. We'll, check out the bull flag. Probably have like a month or so to check out what kind of flagging activity it's doing. But meanwhile, Bitcoin is looking pretty weak. I've been talking about this kind of bearish looking flag. Like this whole flag situation on Bitcoin never looked bullish, but then it started doing what Elliott wave people call an ending diagonal structure, which is, I guess, the Elliott wave thing is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5 wave, you get this consolidating wedge shape, and then that thing would fall out to the downside, like in general Elliott wave theory. And I know that Bitcoin people say that technical analysis doesn't work the same on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin can never go down because all the reasons corporations are buying it up and the stock to flow model and all this stuff. But just looking at the chart, I mean, I've been pointing at Bitcoin being kind of hot above the trend line, above the moving averages. Like it's looked like it needs to pull back to me for about a month. And it's just kind of starting to pull back, but I'm looking for, well, here, let's just say, first of all, Bitcoin like probably won't go down because it doesn't. But just if it did, I'm just going to look at kind of downside support and targets and stuff. Well, back here, like if you go all the way back to the previous top is at 20. If you put the trend line kind of on the top of the top here, it looks like we hit this trend line from underneath and never top tested it. And so like there's a gap here below the first flag on this is like the 1 on the Elliott wave. And it's entirely possible to come all the way back down here and retest the top of the previous bubble. So that's sort of my dramatic lowest lowest number area. I think a more likely downward target if it wants to come down is the top of this flag, which is around 40. And then we have moving averages and such coming in here at 45. And this support line isn't really solid. I'm just kind of trying to figure out where the support trend line is. I had a much steeper support trend line earlier, and it was putting Bitcoin at like 1 million this year, which I think is a bit too strong. Yeah, so I guess I'll just go over the Bitcoin cycle. Let me get out to a weekly chart on Bitcoin and just talk about the cycle, because Bitcoin goes in 4-year cycles. It has to do with having every 4 years the amount of Bitcoin you can mine gets cut in half, and then Bitcoin will go on a bull run. And so we've gotten peaks. The first peak is kind of hard to see on the chart, but you can see here this is December 13 was the peak after the having that cycle, and then here you get December 17 was the peak after this halving cycle, and then December 21. If you're just going by the 4-year cycle, should be when Bitcoin is peaking. But right now it's just running like a little hot. It's running ahead of the moving averages. And let me go to the dailies and show kind of the daily moving averages, how Bitcoin reacts with them, because you can see Bitcoin either tracks the moving average or it pulls back into it pretty reliably. And so this is the previous peak. We had 1, 2, 3 big pullbacks on the way up that just pulled back into the moving average, nothing too dramatic. But you can see 2 cycles ago we did have a big dramatic one. We had a dramatic pullback into the moving average, then it rolled over and ripped through it, and then it took off. So we sort of had 2 peaks in this cycle. And so just kind of a look at, when you're doing kind of the bullish phase, usually you stay above and you pull back and check in with the moving average. That's just pretty normal. And then when you're going bearish, you just kind of hang out underneath the moving average. Then you see it switches back on top, and then you can get into another bull phase. It does that here, stays underneath, right? And then you get, actually this was kind of weird to go like over, under, like this, but this is just kind of the in-between cycle where it's just not doing super interesting stuff. But you can see here, once we got on top of the moving average, we just ripped away from it, and we've been away from it since last October. That's a lot of months. Like 7-something months without checking in with the moving average. So now, we have like this ending diagonal pattern, and we have it starting to pull back. And I hear everyone saying like, oh no, it pulled back from 60 to whatever, 55 or something. I'm like, oh woo, the like pullback is over. Like, that's not really a pullback. I mean, I would say 45 and check in with the moving average is probably the smallest pullback that would count. And this pattern is actually pretty nasty from a technical perspective. So I have no idea what Bitcoin's trying to do. Like, it's super hot, but the technicals look really bad right now. They look terrible. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it pull back to 45 or 40. I would be surprised to see it pull back to 20, but that's sort of like the last line of defense down here. But I'll definitely be watching it, and I think there might be some really good long entries on Bitcoin over the next week or 2 or the next month maybe. Because, yeah, we looked at the 2 cycles ago. You see like this big kind of pullback, and then it rolled again before it took off. And so it's only April. Like, we have a lot of time left if it wants to do the same kind of peak in December kind of look. I think that's entirely possible. So yeah, let's look at the coins. I guess we could check in with Ethereum and see what that's doing. Ethereum has been running pretty hot, and so Doge is like blowing up. Ethereum's running pretty hot. Like, this is common during like the end of like a Bitcoin bull run. Like at the end of the Bitcoin cycle, you'll see the other altcoins starting to take off. So it's probably a good time to, look into random altcoins or, some of the other big altcoins like Monero or something like that. Because those other coins usually they'll outperform Bitcoin at the very end of the cycle. Oh yeah, and I was just on Ledger X, checking out call options. So on Ledger X, you can do call options. They're mini options, so it's based on 0.01 bitcoins, and so they're affordable. It's not like $500,000 for like a call. It's like $5,000 or something, or $10,000 for a Bitcoin call. And so you can get call options on there, and I'm not affiliated with anyone, but I was just checking that out, and yeah, so that's kind of the deal with Bitcoin. I think this is going to come down a little bit more, and I think 45 is kind of the first kind of level of support. But yeah, we'll see what it does. I mean, this is capable of throwing one of those darts down like we've seen in the previous cycles. It does it. I mean, sometimes and this is a logarithmic chart, so it may not look like as much as it is, but this is 30 to 17, like almost in half this move. And this is what, 50 to 30, so that's a pretty big rip too, like a little bit less than half, but it's a way bigger down move than the chart makes it look because it's a logarithmic chart. And same kind of thing here, like these pullbacks here, like I mean this pulled from 255 down to 40, what, 45? Like that's ridiculous. I mean, that's like 90% pullback or something. So yeah, Bitcoin is definitely capable of doing some crazy stuff, but we don't have this parabolic peak look on the chart. Like this is really the first time that Bitcoin has done this type of just bull flag, and then like ending diagonal, like sort of pretty normal, kind of normal looking bubble trend line kind of flagging stuff. So we'll see if Bitcoin decides to do normal technical analysis kind of behavior or not. It's starting to go more mainstream, and it does seem to be sensitive to the stock market pulling back now. So let's look at the general stock market, probably on hourlies. So we're up in the top of the little bull channel here. So this is the bull channel we've been in for the last, whatever, 6 months or something. We started trying to pull out of the channel, and then we did a really aggressive chop back here out of the channel. You know, we were bottom checking off the bottom of the channel. It looked really bearish, and we have this like intersection of bearish lines down here. So yeah, about 2 weeks ago I was really concerned about this thing pulling back, and I was hoping that it came down where a really good call entry could happen. But it ended up just kind of popping up into the bottom of the channel again, which is bullish and kind of boring. But this is actually a pretty good rip from where it took off. It just wasn't a spot where I was trying to go long for sure. But now, okay, so now we're up here at the top of the little channel, and we're finding resistance. So that's kind of the story probably for this week for the S&P is like, is the little bull channel going to knock us down? Or are we going to break out of here, and then immediately above that is the big bull channel? And I'll zoom out and show that as well. So you can see the bigger bull channel here, which we're approaching. And this is the bull channel since 2008 that we've been bulling in for whatever it is, 12 years or something like that. And so we've had some pull downs out of that channel, obviously. The 2018 crash ripped and the COVID crash ripped way down out of here. But we're back in here, and we've shown zero intent to bust out of the top of this channel yet at all. So it'll be really interesting to see if we get up here to the 43, 44 area over the next month or two, what the stock market wants to do. I look at the dollar a lot when I'm talking about the stock market. And right now the dollar has done a big pullback, so it's making kind of a bullish move, and now it's pulling back. And so I think this next week is going to be really critical to see if the dollar can hold a strong trend line, or if we're going to break into further weakness on the dollar, because that huge vertical rip in the stock market over the last year or so has been on the back of a super weak dollar move, this huge down channel in the dollar here. But, you know, if the dollar starts going strong again, that's not really helping the stock market. But like the last 2 weeks have been weird because I mean the stock market has been bulling as the dollar's bulling, and now it's pulling back, and the stock market's pulling back with it. Like the correlation between the S&P and the Dixie is like breaking down. Like they're going the same direction. They're supposed to go opposite directions. So things are getting a little weird. We're at resistance. Like the stock market is high risk but bullish. It's just kind of a weird spot. It's just a weird spot in the market. Yeah, so that's just kind of the look at what's going on. Like things are doing weird stuff. Yeah, the dollar correlation is breaking down. Bitcoin and the stock market are pulling back. But then we have like Doge breaking out and maybe GME breaking out. I looked at GME earlier. But let's go back in here and check this chart out. I don't think much changed here today on like a 30. Yeah, it's about the same. Yeah, so GME, I mean, this is the previous bubble in January, and then we had this big bull flag move, and this has been the last month and a half or something. It's just been flagging around, and it looks like this flag has consolidated down into, basically into last week here, and now it's popped out. And so just from a technical perspective, we want to see if this is like a legit flag breakout or not. So we'll see if it comes down and top tests this, this consolidation channel tomorrow. So if it comes back down into the 150s and holds here, that could be really bullish, but GME has had a really tough time getting past this 194 neckline from the previous bubble. It just keeps hitting it from the top and the bottom. Every time it gets away from it, it just comes back to the 194. So that's kind of the story here with GME, and the other meme stocks are doing similar. They're all consolidating down as well, but only GME has broken out so far. And we'll see if this is a real breakout, because we had some hypey news this weekend, and so maybe this movement isn't special. Maybe it's just like a hype for one day kind of thing. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of a look at all of those things. I heard people saying gold might break out. Let's see what gold's doing. Is that true? Probably not. Gold has just been bad. So, I mean, Bitcoin is kind of pulling back, and then gold is pulling up a little bit. Maybe that's correlated. I've heard a ton of people saying that Bitcoin has been stealing market share from gold because it's like a competing sort of reserve asset, like monetary asset. That may be true, but I'm definitely not ready to say that gold is like reversing or bulling or something like that. Like this is a pretty good looking double bottom, but we're still in this down channel. So I mean, for me to get bullish on gold, it's got to get above this moving average. We need to get up here in the top or out of this sort of down channel that we've been in for a long time. I mean, this is since August last year. Gold has been bearish. So I think it's a little early to call gold bulling, and I think it's a little early to call the dollar going bearish. I've heard a lot of people saying like, oh, okay, this reversal move, like the dollar's obviously going long-term bearish, like right now, like whatever, like it's just coming into support here. The dollar can easily continue bulling from right here, and we'll see this week what it does. But yeah, that's the thing. And then I guess the big risk in the market is not like, oh, is the dollar like a little bit bullish? Like that's not going to collapse the freaking stock market. But people are worried about big reversals or something like that because the stock market's overextended and it's at the top of the channels and all that stuff. But I think the big risk in the market is these hedge funds that have ridiculous amounts of loan out on margin. And as we saw at the Archegos, hedge fund that blew up, like you can get huge amounts of margin loans from multiple banks, and you can do it in swaps, and you can do off-market trading where you don't see it in the trading, and it's not reportable. Like you don't have to report margin loan that you have like on swaps with the banks. So they're kind of hiding their trading patterns. They're trading blocks like offline, off hours, and so it doesn't really reflect in the chart. But I mean, we've seen over the last year or so that it just keeps pushing up and pushing up overnight, and it's like, where is this money coming from? Everyone's like, oh, the Fed is like printing all this money into the stock market, and that's just straight up incorrect. Like, the Fed creating bank reserves does not shove money into the stock market. Like, banks have to make those loans, and the Fed can't make them loan that. It just doesn't work that way. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. Is it's just a ton of loans to funds that are just pouring newly created money into the stock market, but it's not coming from the Fed, it's coming from the banks. And the Fed's not really doing much to influence that. And so, yeah, just kind of the normal thing. Like, the stock market is way up, it's kind of crazy right now. There's risk, but it's still bulling for now. So yeah, we'll see this week if the dollar breaks down. We'll see if we can retest this top of the bull channel. I don't know if there's anything else super interesting or related to crypto kind of going on. I guess commodities are somewhat related. Oil, the stupid oil chart. Oil did like a little, not a breakout, but it was going bearish, and it kind of popped. I mean, it broke out of the downtrend that it had there, but it hasn't like broken out to new highs or anything like that. But this is a pretty bullish move for oil to get away from the downtrend line. So that's kind of bullish for, commodities and things like that. Uranium has been kind of bullying. It's pulling back a little bit. We looked at gold, but that's like a monetary asset, not really a commodity asset. But if you look at silver, let's see. Yeah, silver is like half monetary asset and half commodity. So silver likes inflation, and it likes when commodities are bulling and there's inflation, which was big time. The last year and this year has been true. Like, we've been in an inflationary environment with commodities bulling, but I think silver just kind of got ahead of itself. Like, this is over the last whole year and a half. Like, silver did a huge flagpole, and it's just been flagging across kind of around this 24 area. So it's just kind of a big, slow-moving looking bull flag, but it looks good. As long as we keep an inflationary environment, then silver should be hot. And I know that almost everybody just like takes for granted that we're going to have an inflationary environment, and I'm actually not in that camp. Like, I think it's more likely that we have more deflationary pressure than inflationary over the next like couple of years. And I'll do a deflation video, like looking at euro dollar futures and that kind of stuff soon. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to check in on Bitcoin and say, like, it's not crazy for Bitcoin to pull back. Like, every bull cycle it pulls back, and it can pull back big. I mean, you saw like a 90% pullback on 2 cycles ago, but like a 20 to 40% pullback. That's a huge pullback. Is entirely possible. Like, Bitcoin does that kind of thing almost every cycle, and we really haven't had much of a pullback. I mean, we went from 40 to 30. I mean, that's a bit of a pullback, but that's not like a pullback that would freak anyone out. But anyway, just like a look on Bitcoin, it can pull back. It does it every cycle. And this thing looks like it wants to pull back. So, yeah, I'm just kind of watching that. If it pulls back, I'm going to be probably just getting call options. I don't know. I might buy and hold some Bitcoin, but, if it pulls back to 45, that's okay. 40 is good. And then if it keeps coming down, like, goodness, I don't know. I don't know if it can come like way back to 20. I don't think so. But I mean, if it went there, it would be just like all in, like crazy. I would sell everything else and just like I would just go like everything into Bitcoin. So yeah, not investment advice. As always, this is just an entertainment scenario on a couple of charts. Just some stuff to think about. The market's been doing crazy stuff for a while, but this is different crazy stuff. Like, things are going crazy in the opposite direction, short term, just for a couple of days. But we'll see if this kind of stuff continues. Like, things could get crazy. People will start freaking out, but it's not too big of a deal. Just heads up and all of that. and happy trading.